Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in and welcome to those who are new. Today's video is another Dollar Tree DIY video, and today I am creating some Valentine's goodies. Now last week I did more of a neutral Valentine's decor, and this week I'm going a little bit more colorful, a little bit more playful, not so much traditional because there's no red, but definitely more on the playful side. So I hope that you enjoy this video and you stick around by subscribing to this channel, because once you hit subscribe, we instantly become best friends.
Did we just become best friends? Yup!
And please hit that notification bell. YouTube might let you know when I upload, but if they don't, make sure that you're following me on Instagram. I always post when I have a new video and all sorts of other goodies. So let's go ahead and get started. For my first tutorial, I'm going to make a really easy pillow, and I'm using these little bar towels from Dollar Tree. They bring 2 to a pack, and they're supposed to be the exact same size. However, we all know they're not. So I'm going to add some little tassels. You can get tassels at Walmart. I actually got this off of an old pillow from Dollar Tree, the little tiny ones that wrap around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it down to size and then just start hot gluing it to the bottom piece of the pillow. Normally I would sew this and I would flip it inside out, but I'm just hot gluing to keep this simple. If you do want a tutorial on sewing it, then I would suggest watching my tutorial for the Christmas pillows I made. I did sew, and I also show you other methods that you can use. So I'm going to go around, and I'm only going to leave one side open. So as you can see, I'm hot gluing, I'm adding my other little tassel piece, and then I'm going to leave that top side open so that I can go ahead and stuff it. But before I stuff it, I do want to add my little design up front. So I'm making sure to align the cloth with the bottom cloth, covering up that strip of pink in the tassel. And then now I'm going to add a felt heart. I'm going to do this pink one, and I'm going to attach it using hot glue. I'm using a very, very small amount so it doesn't seep to the back of the pillow, and just making sure that it is nice and secured in place. Now you can leave this as is, but I just want a little extra. I thought it looked a little plain, and I use this Dollar Tree ribbon around the borders. Now, like I said, you have the option of sewing these pillows. If you make it with hot glue, then you certainly can't wash them and put them in the dryer. These are kind of like pillows that you use for the season, and then you kind of just upcycle later on. But if you want something that's going to last you a long time, then I would definitely suggest using a sewing machine or hand sewing. So I'm going all the way around with this, and once I've covered all 4 sides, I'm going to go ahead and hot glue the top just a little bit, leaving a tiny little place open so that I can stuff it. You don't want to stuff it with it completely open. So I put all my stuffing on the inside, and this is just an old pillow, and now I'm going to push that in and use some hot glue to seal it. And once I was done, I had this adorable little pink pillow, so cute for a teen's room if you want to use it all year round. I just love it. For this tutorial, I'm going to need one of these little floral wreath things from Dollar Tree. I'm not sure what they're called. And I'm going to need some conversation hearts and sweet tarts. I mixed both, and I got these both at Dollar Tree. So I'm just going to go ahead and mix these up just so I have more variety, because even though they're supposed to be the same thing, the colors are a tiny bit different. And for this whole tutorial, I only use these 2 packs. I'm going to start hot gluing my little hearts into place. Now, I want to make sure that I keep this nice and flat on the table so that I'm not putting any hearts anywhere where once you hang this up, it would knock it off of the wall. So just find out the placement, add a little bit of hot glue. You use a lot less glue if you add the glue to the sweet tart itself, and I figured that out along the way. So I covered the entire thing, and you can go ahead and cover this with epoxy if you want this to be a long-term thing. I didn't do that. I just went ahead and took the Dollar Tree wood hearts, and I use this throughout the entire tutorials. So I'm going to use these hearts, and I'm going to paint them pink and blue. I do mention these shades later on. The blue is aqua mixed with white, and the pink is something called Tropic Thunder and white, I believe. Now I'm going to go ahead and use these from Dollar Tree. These are these little galvanized signs, and I'm going to place it to where I cover up that little hole. So once I cover up those little holes, I'm going to add a tiny bit of hot glue just to secure everything in place, and so that the hearts don't move. So I'm just lifting it up, adding hot glue, and pressing it down. But of course, you can always cover that hole up with a little bit of spackle and then paint it so that you don't have this problem. So once this is nice and secure, I'm going to go ahead and put this on my wreath. And I'm going to attach it the exact same way. I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue to the ends that are going to be touching the sweet tarts, and then placing that right on top without moving it around so that it has a really nice hold. Let it set and dry, and now I wanted to add a little ribbon. So I got some Dollar Tree burlap, made this little situation over here, and then hot glued that together. I always mention this in every tutorial. I am not the best at making bows. So now I'm gonna cut this into a piece and hot glue that together. Usually that's how I make bows, but this time I'm gonna double it. Olivia's Romantic Design always does these extravagant bows, so if you want something a little bit more professional looking, definitely check her out. She does really, really cool stuff here and on Instagram as well. So I'm going to double my bow up, and with another piece of my burlap, I'm going to fold it up and I'm going to hide the middle just so it looks a little bit more put together, and of course so it looks like a complete bow, and I'm going to attach it using hot glue. Now, when I was done, I took this bow and I attached it to that little loop that I created. To hang this, you do want to put a little loop on the back, which I didn't show, but when you're done, you have this beautiful wreath. For this next tutorial, I'm going to be using this Dollar Tree St. Patrick's Day decor. It's supposed to be a little pot of gold, and I'm going to give it a little makeover. So I'm going to start by just tracing out where I want the actual rim to go, and I'm going to use this color. It's called Aqua. I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of white, but if you have whatever color you want at home, you can just do that. I just know that people like to see what colors I'm using. So now I'm going to paint the entire thing this color, well, below the line that I made. And it doesn't really have to be neat, but the reason that I'm going so heavy is because I want to make sure that this paint is still wet when I move on to the next step. So I'm going and doing really, really heavy coats, and if you have a bigger brush, then definitely use that. Now I'm going to go in with just the white alone, and I'm going to start to add some highlights. So I'm going to start to do this kind of in a parentheses shape, just to give this a little bit of dimension. I'm not an expert, but if you keep it just one solid color, then it just looks a little flat and boring. So I'm adding highlights. I'm also going to add some darkness to it. So I'm going to take the aqua color by itself, and I'm going to do the exact same thing, but just do that along the edges, anywhere where a shadow would go. So once I'm done creating all of the shadows in the bottom and the feet, the little handles, wherever it would give it some definition, I'm going to let this dry completely before I move on to the top. This is what it looks like, and I think it looks pretty good. Now for the top, I decided to go with these two colors and just lighten it up a little bit. So I'm going to mix it up until I get the nice peachy shade that I want. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go in with a heavy hand to make sure that it is nice and wet when I go to add some details to this. Now, I do want this to look a little bit like a potion, so keeping it just one flat color is not going to work. So I'm going to grab the first color, and then with a brush, I'm going to start just making little tiny swirls upward as if a potion is brewing. At one point, I did grab a sponge and add some white, but honestly, that didn't really work out. Not to mention, I am going to be covering this up with hearts, so I just added it just to give it a little bit of dimension and just kept playing around. If I did go a little heavy with the darker color, I would just go in with the lighter color and lighten that up, just so it didn't look so harsh. As you can see, some of the lines are disappearing and some of them are reappearing. That's just me playing with the two colors. So I'm going to let this dry completely before adding anything else. At this point, you just don't want to touch it until it's dry. For the top, I use these stickers from Dollar Tree as well as these foam stickers from Dollar Tree, and I just started to figure out placement. I did cut some of the foam ones so that they look like they're coming out of the pot, and then I just figured out placement before gluing them down. So once I glued it down, now I wanted to add something to this. So I found these at Dollar Tree. I was gonna originally write Love Potion, but I thought this was perfect. So I added a teeny tiny bit of glue in case I needed to move it. And once I placed it down, I grabbed my darker color and just started adding a little bit of shadow. Nothing too crazy, but just to give it a little bit of dimension as well. Once it's completely dry, you can pop this on a wreath, you can hang it, you can display it as is. There's so many options, and this is such an easy repaint. For my garden gnome tutorial, I am going to be using a jar. This is just a leftover pasta jar, which I ran through the dishwasher. And if you don't have that, you can also just buy a jar at Dollar Tree. They have little cute stubby ones. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover this with a knit hat because I feel like you can get the most material out of this. I've seen a lot of gnome tutorials where people put rice or beans into a sock, and those are amazing. One of my favorites are from the Daily DIYer. She uses a Christmas tree in one, so I'll link her gnome tutorials below because they're so cute. This one is going to be a little different because I want to be able to use the storage on the inside. So I'm going to take my knit hat and I am just going to split it down the middle so I get double the material. And then I'm going to just cut off the edges to make it a little neater. I'm going to hot glue this just below the jar lid so I can still open and close it. And you can always cover up the back with another piece of fabric so it looks like a little cloak. For the feet, I'm going to use these little baby shower favors from Dollar Tree. They do come in pink, but I forgot to buy them in pink, so I just spray painted them, and with some hot glue, I placed them to the bottom and then secured the little cloak on top of that. Now for the arms, I use these washcloths, which I found at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to open one up and cut it down the middle so that I have two pieces. Now I do want my gnome to have little hands, so I'm going to use these little socks, which I found at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to stick cotton on the inside, twist it around, and then with a tiny little rubber band, I am just going to secure that in place. Now if you have clear rubber bands, use those. I didn't have any, and I'm just going to cut a little bit and make sure that I make two. I do want these arms to bend a little bit, so I'm going to use some Dollar Tree wire, and I'm going to wrap it a few times around my hand, cut it down, and place it onto my little washcloth. So as you can see, I'm just wrapping it a few times, and then I am securing the little hands and rolling the washcloth with the wire, and then cutting down the excess so it doesn't look all funky, even though this isn't really supposed to be proportioned. I'm just rolling it, securing the little washcloth in place, and then I'm going to hot glue it to the jar, making sure I add plenty of hot glue so that it seeps through the little cloak and onto the glass itself. For the head, I'm going to use a Dollar Tree doggy ball, and I'm going to cover it with the same little pantyhose or whatever you call those, and then I put some cotton balls on the inside to make the nose, and I'm going to secure it the same way by using a rubber band. So that way I have a little nose, and don't worry about the imperfections because it is going to be covered. And I'm going to hot glue that to my jar lid. Make sure that the head is facing the direction where the jar lid closes. And with this headband from Dollar Tree, I'm going to take the little ponytail part at the bottom. And as you can see, there's a little plastic piece. I'm going to grab some hot glue and I'm going to flood that with hot glue. Now, after I've flooded that, I'm going to cut it. And then that top piece, I'm going to flood with some more hot glue just to make sure that there are no loose pieces of hair. Make sure that it dries really well before moving on. Then you're going to want to split it above the nose and just start spreading out the hair and hot gluing the bottom and the top. Just be very careful not to go crazy with the hot glue so you can't see it on the front. At this point, my gnome looks like Gandalf, and I'm going to give it a little hat by using this pack of socks from Dollar Tree. I just used one white sock, and I made sure that the ball was completely covered. Now, for the end, after I added this little heart, I decided I wanted it to be a little lifted. So before adding the pom-pom, I did cut the end, fill it with some cotton balls just to make it look a little lifted, and then I scrunched the tip together, hot glued it, and then added my little pom-pom. This was the finishing touch. If you have a little heart to add to the end, you can do that too, or add nothing at all. totally up to you. I wanted to give them a little heart to hold, so I used one of my leftover wood hearts and covered the little circle with one of my leftover wood stickers, and I just had him hold it in place, and you can still open him up and store some goodies inside. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much, and I will hopefully see you on the next one.